I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is a Victorian side chair, most commonly known as a balloon back chair. And any furniture repair person knows how difficult they can be to repair. This video shows a different balloon back chair that has a broken crest rail. Never pick a chair up by the crest rail. You'll see in the video what happens. When you need to move any chair, pick it up by the seat, pick it up by the back supports. Never the crest rail. You'll see a lot of detail here. The chair needed to be re-glued entirely before we could really do the repair work on the crest rail. In addition, a previous repair person had sanded this area so much as to lose the shape, and that's permanent. There's just not much we could do about that. The disassembly was tedious, but there's a lot of good tips on the use of epoxy putty and a good demonstration on how I blended in the colors of my new wood in this area. But in the end, it looked pretty good. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, I hope you subscribe, like, share. I'd appreciate it. This is a very common type of Victorian chair. It's called a balloon back chair, probably from the around 1880s, 1890s or so. And the crest rail is broken. This is a very common thing to happen to these balloon back chairs. It's just too convenient of a handle, I guess, and it's broken here. So I've got to repair it and hopefully try to make it a little bit stronger, possibly by lengthening the dowels a little bit. The back splat here across is also missing a piece of wood, so I'll have to replace that also. What makes this chair special to the owners is the fact that one of their ancestors, a mother or grandmother, did the needlepoint on this seat. It's not in great condition. I need to take this chair apart anyway to re-glue it, and I will carefully remove this, and I'll take it to my upholsterer who will back it and redo the seat with the same needlepoint. Alright, so the first step is to carefully remove this upholstery. The tacks and the gimp won't be reused. No upholsterer will ever use old tacks. I'm going to save a little bit, as much of this gimp as possible, so the upholsterer can see what was there. But of course, none of this upholstery is original to the piece, and we're going to save it though anyway. The main thing is to be careful is to not damage the wood while trying to pull the tacks and upholstery. Okay, here we are, the frame's all stripped down. So the next step, even before I begin the repair on the crest rail though, is the frame itself is loose here in the front. It's loose here in the back a little bit. Oddly enough, the sides seem tight. So maybe I can just, take these sides apart from these two rails and keep these intact. I think I want to re-glue this before I start work on the crest rail. So at this point, once I've got the area warmed up and have this putty knife started, now I'm basically aiming the heat gun at the knife itself and heating the knife up as I tap it in. Now some wood split out behind this joint, and so the important thing is to glue all that back immediately, right now. All the pieces are lined up. It's a grain break. They'll glue right back where they belong. This joint seems to be loose all the way around, so I think I can go ahead and try to tap it out of there. Well, it's amazing how sometimes it seems like 90% of the glue in the joint is loose, but that last little bit is hanging on. But you've got to get it out, you've got to re-glue it. If not, by the time you're done working on the chair and goes to the upholsterer and comes back again, you can bet that joint will then be really loose. So I want to glue this basic frame back together before I tackle the crest rail. And I realized this cross piece, which goes across the back here, is missing a chunk, so I've got to repair that first. So I found a nice piece of walnut to use for the repair. It's nice, it's not too dark, even has a little redness in it, which is tough when you're doing repairs to Victorian furniture. The old walnut is, air-dried walnut is much lighter and redder than new stuff. And I'm going to use an aluminum strap clamped to this piece to use as a guide for my chisel. The grain of the new wood, the grain pattern of the new wood doesn't match this kind of little swirliness I got going there, but I like this color and I can get the grain going in the right direction, so I'm going to use that section right in here. So I need to trace this profile to transfer to the other side, and I'll use a, so because this is curved, I'll use a piece of wacky wood. Okay, so before I can put my template on the other side, I've got to trim this block to the contour of this curve. Okay, I need to cut out my template now. So I feel like I've got the, the basic frame is ready for me to dry clamp, but I still haven't even addressed the issue of the crest rail, which was broken, of course. I think I need to get these pieces, this broken piece off, and then clean the glue off. The other side just looks like the dowel is broken. So anyway, see if I can get this apart. So on this right facing side of the crest rail, this is the original dowel, so I'm going to drill that out. And you'll see it's very important, critically important, to keep that dowel in the exact same place. So you'll see what I'm going to do. I'm going to drill with a smaller drill bit, try to shoot down the center with increasingly larger bits until I can sort of peel out the old dowel. Okay, I'm ready to glue this up. There are some gaps in the back of this joint especially, which I saw when I was doing it, gluing up, clamping it up dry. So I'm going to put little wedges of veneer into Alright, seems nice and strong. I've got a piece missing here I've got to cut in. Now I realize I don't want to cut into my dowel there, so I'm going to cut here at the end for and put a smaller piece in and then a larger piece on top. Now I've got another place here. I've got to glue a wedge in here, this opening. There wasn't much I could do about it, gluing it up, so I'll fill it now. So in this area, the grain is running this way, more or less, horizontally. So I've got to make my wedge with the grain going in the same direction, which is not the strongest way, but it will, hopefully I can get it in there. So I found a nice piece of thin walnut in my walnut scrap box. So I think I can make this wedge shaped on the sander and get it in there. Now I've been back and forth to the sander a few times. And I discovered too, I needed two wedges because there's a dowel in there. So one there, and this one here. And this one had to be shaped in both directions, this way and then down this way too. Now I've got a few openings here in this joint where I put my wedges and stuff, and I'm going to use epoxy putty to fill those in. Well, this is pretty slow going on this thing, but I've got some more puttying to do, and I think I'm going to do the puttying around the edges here and then start sanding it some more and sort of finishing up the details as I go along. Now, this epoxy stick can be notoriously difficult to sand once it's hardened. So I've just applied this. I'm watching the clock, but right away I've got a container of water, and you can dip your finger in water. You can also dip your putty knife in water and smooth this out while it's still soft. Now I've still got to watch the clock. because between 7 and 10 minutes, it'll hopefully be just the right consistency where I can actually take chisel and carving tool and smooth it out even more. Okay, I've let that putty harden for about 45 minutes. And now I'll start sanding it with 100 grit paper, and of course use my chisels and carving tools too if I need to. I'm hoping I can just sand it. All right, I think I've got this lower field sanded out pretty well. And now I'll concentrate on the leaves. Okay, I think I'm at the point where my carving now just needs 150. I've got to go back to sanding these repair areas. I'm at a real disadvantage here. Previous repair people had sanded these joints, sanded the daylights out of them. When I glued this up, I made sure the back was all lined up. But I got a serious flat part on the outside of the curve here, where the curve was sanded off. And generally speaking, all around this joint is just kind of dished out and bellied out. There's not much I can do about it. I'm just going to have to go with the flow here and hope that in the end it looks okay. So I've done it as best I can, trying to maintain what shape there is. It's just never going to be right. So I'm ready to shellac these areas, but first I'm going to clean the whole chair. And I'm just going to use a very, very mild solution of some industrial cleaner I have in water, and just clean it down, get my glue off and anything else that's on there. All right, I'll let this dry overnight. All right, I'm just going to go over my repair areas here, the new areas, with a little bit of 220, because the grain might have gotten raised a little bit when I wash the chair. And then I'm going to give the entire chair, including the new areas, a coat of shellac. And now I'll use a gray Scotch-Brite pad to go over the other finished parts of the chair. So I've gone over this with the gray pad really thoroughly, and then in addition to the gray pad, I took some 220. A lot of these corners were really ragged, so I'm just sort of cutting these corners with a little bit of 220. Yeah, I've let this dry for a few hours, and all my new wood has really soaked it in, which is to be expected. So I'm going to put another coat just on my sanded areas here. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting my repair areas really sealed off well with shellac. I want the grain filled more or less, and for them to be really smooth before I go on to the next step. If you've seen my video, Glazing and Toning Furniture, it explains this process. So I've let this dry overnight. Now I'm going to sand it just lightly with some 500 paper and a gray Scotch-Brite pad. I don't want to cut through or anything. Okay, now I'm going to use some Van Dyke brown glaze to color this up a little bit. Well, my glaze is doing, okay, but I can tell that I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to have to go use some toners too, some aerosol toners. You can see how the glaze really helps, especially on my new little carving area there. Really brings out the detail, because the glaze stays in the little deep areas, and then it's highlighted a little bit with this dry brush. Okay, so now I need to let this dry for at least an hour. So now I'll seal these areas with some aerosol shellac. All right, this is dried overnight, and it looks really good. I think I just need to sand this, once again with 500 really lightly. Don't want to cut through any color. I can see I have a couple touch-ups. I really need to tone this piece here. My piece on this needs a little bit of like medium brown walnut toner. And then I'll go over the repair areas again with the aerosol shellac. And I'm just going to use some dye stain for these little touch-ups. This piece of wood is still just a little bit light. I think I'm going to mist it again, but with some Van Dyke brown this time. Brown it up a little bit. All right, I've let this dry for just a couple of hours. And I think the color looks good. So now I'm just going to shade these repair areas a little bit with the medium brown walnut, just kind of overall to tie it all together. And hopefully then a coat of clear, and that'll be it. Alright, now I'll let everything dry for an hour or so. I'll hit these areas with the clear shellac aerosol, and then I'll let that dry overnight. Alright, it's dried overnight. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some of my orange oil and beeswax polish in a little cup, add a little bit of pumice to it, and then just rub this down with that mixture and a rag. I just want to cut down the sheen some. And so now I'm just going to wipe it down with my regular polish rag, the same polish. And then I'll need to, wait a few minutes, I don't know, half hour, hour or so, let it dry to really be able to see what the sheen turns out to be. And then it's ready to go to the upholsterers. It's been a couple weeks now at the upholsterers. Let's check it out. Wow. The upholsterer took the old needle point, he lined it, made repairs to the holes, and reinstalled it. It looks great. Of course, all the work I did, but boy, I have about 12 hours in this project. I'm sure the upholsterer has a few hours. Well worth it. It looks pretty good.